That night, I drove my daughter to the airport for what I thought was just another work trip. Everything seemed normal until my grandson, who is only 7 years old, grabbed my hand tightly. His eyes, wide with panic, froze me in place. With a trembling voice, he whispered, "Grandma, don't let's go back to the house. I heard Mama planning something against us this morning. Please, believe me." In that instant, something inside me broke. Without asking any questions, I started the car and fled with him into the dark night. But before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. We love to know how far our stories are traveling. My name is Ilara Bynum. I am 70 years old, and until that night, I thought I knew my daughter Candace like the back of my hand. I live with her and my grandson, Devin, ever since the death of my son-in-law, Reggie, 3 years ago. It was a car accident that left deep scars on all of us, especially on little Devin, who has since become an extremely observant and quiet child. That Thursday, we drove Candace to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for a business trip to Chicago. She's a marketing manager at a big firm and travels frequently. We arrived early. The terminal was relatively empty, and the icy blast of the air conditioning made me hug my thin coat closer to my body. "It'll only be 3 days, Mama." Candace smiled as she adjusted her carry-on bag. "Take good care of Devin, and don't forget his medication." Devin, standing beside me, clutched his dinosaur backpack tightly, watching his mother with intense eyes. He's never been a boy of many words, but that night, he was even quieter than usual. "Everything will be fine, my love. We always make it work, don't we, Devin?" I tried to include my grandson in the conversation, but he just nodded silently. Candace crouched down in front of her son and smoothed the hair falling over his eyes. "Be good for Grandma. Go, Mama, I'll be back soon." She kissed him on the forehead, and Devin remained still, like a small statue. I watched my daughter with a swelling heart. Despite the hardships, she had become a strong, independent woman. After losing her husband, she threw herself into work with even greater determination, perhaps as a way to escape the pain. I admired her resilience, even if I noticed a certain emotional distance growing between us. "I have to go," she said, checking her watch. "Boarding starts in half an hour." We shared a brief hug, a mechanical embrace without much warmth, something that had become common between us lately. She kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the gate. We watched her silhouette move away until she disappeared into the crowd. "Let's go, Devin. It's getting late," I said, taking my grandson's hand. We walked down the terminal corridor toward the parking garage. Devin didn't say a single word the whole way. His silence didn't worry me. It was just his way. Since his father's accident, he communicated more with looks and gestures than with words. The parking garage was poorly lit. Only a few yellow lamps cast shapeless shadows on the concrete floor. Few cars were parked at this hour. I pressed the alarm button, and the lights of our old Chevy Impala blinked. I started walking toward the car, gently pulling Devin by the hand. That's when I felt it, a strong, almost violent pull. Devin had stopped suddenly and was gripping my wrist with such force that his small fingernails left marks on my wrinkled skin. I turned around confused. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked, bending down to his level. Devin's face was pale beneath the yellowish light of the pole. His eyes, always watchful, were now wide with pure terror. I had never seen such an expression on his little face. A chill ran down my spine. "Grandma," he whispered, so softly that I had to lean in to hear. "Don't let's go back to the house. Please believe me." I stood there confused, thinking maybe he was afraid of the empty house without his mother. "Don't worry, my love. We'll be fine. Just the two of us for a few days." He shook his head vigorously, gripping my wrist even harder. "No, Grandma, don't go back to the house," he repeated, his voice now cracking. "This morning, I heard Mama on the phone in the home office. She was talking about us." My heart pounded. "What did you hear, Devin?" He swallowed, his lips trembling slightly. He leaned in even closer to my ear. "Mama said, after we fell asleep, that everything was ready. She said, make sure there are no mistakes. The gas has to look like an accidental leak." My blood froze in my veins. I stood paralyzed, staring at those innocent eyes that now carried the weight of a terrible secret. "Please, Grandma." His voice was a shaky thread. "Believe me this time." That last sentence hit me like a slap. I remembered other times Devin had tried to warn me, when he said he saw his mother hiding papers in the office, when he mentioned she had spent all night messing with the kitchen pipes. I had always thought they were just stories from a child trying to get attention. My hands started shaking. I didn't want to believe it. It was impossible that Candace, my own daughter, could be plotting to kill us. But the terror in Devin's eyes was too real. "Okay, baby," I whispered, stroking his pale cheek. "I believe you. We're not going home tonight." The relief in his gaze was immediate and so profound that it dispelled any lingering doubt I might have had. He knew. Somehow, this 7-year-old child had uncovered a horrific plan. I stood up on shaky legs. My mind raced. If what Devin was saying was true, we couldn't just go to a hotel or a friend's house. Candace could trace the credit card. She could call everyone we knew. I got into the car with Devin, helped him buckle his seatbelt, and sat behind the wheel. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. "Where are we going, Grandma?" Devin asked, his small voice breaking the tense silence. I had no idea. I looked in the rearview mirror at his worried little face and tried to sound confident. "We're going somewhere safe, sweetie. I just need to think for a minute." I started the engine and slowly backed out of the parking spot. We needed time, we needed a plan, and above all, we needed to find out why my own daughter wanted us dead. I drove for almost an hour with no clear destination, just getting further away from our house. Devin fell asleep in the back seat, overcome by emotional exhaustion. I occasionally glanced at him in the mirror, his face serene in contrast to the terror he had shown in the parking garage. How could a child so small bear such a heavy secret? As I drove through the increasingly deserted city streets, my mind worked frantically, trying to connect the dots. Candace had changed in recent months. That was undeniable. More distant, more impatient, always locked in the home office making calls in hushed tones. I had attributed everything to grief, work stress, and the pressures of being a single mother. But now, recalling every detail, every strange look, every interrupted conversation when I walked into the room, a sinister pattern began to form. I stopped the car at a 24-hour gas station on the outskirts of the city. We needed a plan, and I needed to think clearly. I bought a watery cup of coffee from the convenience store and returned to the car, watching Devin, who was still asleep. That's when my cell phone vibrated in my coat pocket. Candace's name lit up the screen. My heart leapt. Her flight should have taken off hours ago. Why was she calling? With trembling hands, I answered. "Hello? Hey, Mama." Candace's voice sounded strangely calm. "Where are you? You should have been home an hour ago." A shiver ran down my back. How did she know we weren't home? "Oh, we decided to stop for dinner," I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Devin was hungry." A silence on the other end. "I see. And where are you having dinner?" "At that restaurant near the shopping center," I replied vaguely. "Shouldn't you be on the plane?" "There was a problem with the flight," she said quickly. "It was rescheduled for early tomorrow. I'm heading back home now." I froze. That made no sense. Candace always checked flight schedules meticulously. She would never let an unexpected event like that happen. "Oh, what a shame," I replied, trying to sound natural. "Well, we'll see you at home later then?" "Yes, of course," she said, her voice suddenly sweet. "Don't worry about rushing. Enjoy your dinner. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." I hung up and stared at the phone. It was a trap. She was checking to see if we had figured anything out. Maybe she had cameras at the house. Maybe she realized Devin had overheard her that morning. Devin stirred in the back seat, slowly opening his eyes. "Was that Mama?" he asked with a shrewdness that scared me. I nodded, unable to hide the truth from those perceptive eyes. "She said the flight was canceled. She's coming back home." Devin's eyes widened in terror. "She knows, Grandma. She knows we found out." I took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in my hands. "Devin, I need you to tell me exactly what you heard this morning. Everything. Every single detail." He sat up straight, smoothing his wrinkled t-shirt. He looked much older than his 7 years as he began to speak. "Mama woke up really early. I heard her in the hallway and thought she was making breakfast, but she went to the office and closed the door." He hesitated, looking down. "I know I shouldn't have, but I went over there and listened behind the door." "It's okay, sweetie. Keep going." She was talking really low, but I managed to hear. She said, "Yes, they'll be alone. 3 days is enough time for it to look like an accident. The gas leak during the night while they sleep, nobody will suspect." Devin paused, taking a deep breath, and then said something about papers and insurance money. She said, "Once they're out of the way, I can finally access everything." A shiver ran through my body. Insurance papers. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. 6 months ago, my late husband Reggie had left the documents for a substantial life insurance policy. Candace knew that I was the primary beneficiary with specific clauses that allotted a considerable portion to Devin, which he could only access when he turned 21. Candace was the fund administrator, but she couldn't touch the money. Not while I was alive. There was also the house that belonged to Reggie and me, and which, after his death, passed entirely to me. Candace lived with us, but the property was mine, a property that was constantly appreciating with the neighborhood's growth. "Devin?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Did you hear your mother talking about money or Grandpa's insurance before?" He nodded slowly. "Lots of times. She always gets very angry when she talks about it. Once she said on the phone that she was stuck because of us." Every word was like a knife in my heart. My own daughter plotting to kill us for money. It was so absurd, so monstrous, that my mind resisted accepting it. But the evidence was all there. The change in her behavior, the sudden interest in financial matters, the constant questions about my will, the business trips that seemed to spring up from nowhere, and now this fake, canceled trip. She wanted to catch us off guard. She wanted to ensure we would be home sleeping when the accident happened. "What are we going to do, Grandma?" Devin asked, his small voice bringing me back to reality. I looked at this extraordinary child who had sensed the danger before I did, who had saved our lives with his observation and courage. "First, we're going to get even farther away," I replied, starting the car engine again. "And then we're going to get evidence." "Evidence?" Devin asked, confused. "Yes, sweetie, proof that shows your mother is planning something terrible, something we can take to the police." Devin nodded gravely. This was not a conversation a grandmother should be having with her grandson. It was not a weight a child should carry. But we were in this together. It was just the two of us against someone I never would have imagined as an enemy. As I drove through the night, an idea began to form in my mind. A risky plan, but one that might give us the proof we needed. "Devin," I said, looking at him in the rearview mirror, "do you remember Mr. Harrison, the doorman at our old apartment building?" He nodded. Wallace Harrison was an old friend, a discreet and reliable man who had worked for decades in the building where we lived before moving into the house. "I think we need to pay him a visit," I said, steering toward the old neighborhood. It was a risky gamble, but at that moment we didn't have many options. We needed a safe place to spend the night, and more importantly, we needed help to expose Candace before she could try again. The car's clock read 1:20 a.m. when we finally reached the old building. My heart pounded as I parked on the parallel street, away from the building's security cameras. If Candace was truly looking for us, we couldn't leave clues. "Stay here for just a minute, Devin," I said, turning off the engine. "Grandma is going to check if Mr. Harrison is on the night shift." I got out of the car and walked quickly to the security booth, staying in the shadows. The booth was lit, and to my relief, there was Wallace Harrison, his wrinkled face bent over a crossword magazine. I tapped lightly on the glass, and he looked up, confused at first, then surprised to recognize me. "Ms. Alara!" He stood up, opening the booth door. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Wallace, forgive me for showing up like this, I spoke in a low voice, looking nervously around. But I have a serious problem. I need your help. The small staff apartment in the back of the building was simple but cozy. Wallace had lived there since his wife passed away 10 years ago. It was a discreet space with a separate entrance, invisible to anyone who didn't know the building well, perfect for what we needed, a temporary hiding place. Devin was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping hot chocolate that Wallace had made. The old doorman watched us with concern, still processing the incredible story I had just told him. "Ms. Alara," Wallace finally spoke, his grave voice breaking the silence. "Are you sure about this? It's a very serious accusation against your own daughter." I sighed heavily. "I know, Wallace, it sounds like madness. I don't want to believe it myself." I looked at Devin, who kept his eyes fixed on the cup. But I can't ignore what Devin heard, and there are other signs that I'm only now connecting. Wallace nodded slowly, rubbing his wrinkled chin. He had known our family for decades. He had seen Candace grow up. He had wept at my husband's funeral. "What do you plan to do, Ms. Alara?" he asked. "We need proof," I replied, my mind still working on the plan that had started to form in the car. If we go to the police now, with just the testimony of a 7-year-old and my suspicions, they won't take us seriously. Candace is respected. She has a solid career. They'll say it's just a misunderstanding, or worse, that I'm becoming senile. Wallace frowned but didn't disagree. He knew I was right. "And where do I fit into this story?" he asked. "I need to go back to the house," I said, feeling Devin tense up beside me. "Not to stay, but to look for evidence. I need to know exactly what Candace was planning, and I need Devin to stay here safely while I do that." "No, Grandma," Devin exclaimed, putting the mug down on the table with a thud. "It's dangerous. Mama might come back." I took his cold little hands in mine. "I know, sweetie, but I'm going to be careful. I'm just going to take a quick look in her office to see if I can find any clues. I'll be in and out before she realizes." Devin shook his head, tears glistening in his eyes. "I don't want you to go. I don't want to stay alone." "You won't be alone," I reassured him. "Mr. Harrison will stay with you, and I promise I'll be back soon." "You shouldn't go alone," Wallace intervened, worry evident on his face. "If what you say is true, it's too risky." "I don't have a choice," I replied. "If Candace finds out we know something, she can destroy any evidence, or worse, she might try something more direct." I shuddered at the possibilities. I need to act now, while she still believes we suspect nothing. Wallace sighed, running his hand through his gray hair. "At least let me drive you there. I'll wait in the car on the corner. If you don't come out in 20 minutes, I'm calling the police." I nodded. It was better than going completely alone. "I want to go too," Devin insisted. "No, sweetie," I said firmly. "It's too dangerous. I need you to stay here, safe. I promise I'll be back." After more insistence, Devin finally gave in, but not before hugging me with enough force to take my breath away. "Promise you'll be careful, Grandma," he whispered in my ear. "Promise me." "I promise you," I replied, kissing his forehead. Wallace lent us an old burner phone, the kind without registration, so we could communicate without using my phone, which Candace might trace. We agreed on the codes. 1 ring, and hang up meant I was fine. 2 rings meant trouble. After making sure Devin was comfortable on the small sofa bed in the apartment, with strict instructions to lock the door and not open it for anyone but